My therapist said my financial decisions were trauma responses. She was right. The number in your net worth app says $200,000. The feeling in your chest says something is very, very wrong. You've done everything right. The accounts, the spreadsheets, the books, and somehow you are still losing, not the money, something quieter than that. Because you know exactly what to do. You've read the books, watched the videos. You have a Roth IRA you opened 2 years ago and have never once funded. A budget spreadsheet so detailed it has its own color coding system. And yet, every single month, you end up in the exact same place. Slightly behind, slightly ashamed, whispering to yourself that next month will be different. It never is. So one afternoon, on a whim or maybe desperation wearing a whim's disguise, you book a therapy appointment, not for your money, for your anxiety, but 11 minutes into sitting across from a woman named Dr. Reyes, calm, unhurried, with expensive taste in throw pillows. She says there's something that quietly detonates everything you thought you knew about yourself. She asks, when you spend money on something you don't need, how does it feel right before you buy it? You open your mouth, nothing comes out because you realize you have never, not once in your life, asked yourself that question. Go back, not far, just to your childhood bedroom. You are 9 years old, maybe 10, and there's a feeling in that house, not a sound, not a fight, just a feeling, like the air itself is holding its breath. Your parents don't argue about money loudly. They argue about it the way money arguments actually happen, in tight silences, in doors that close a little too firmly, in a vacation that gets canceled without explanation. You learn in that house that money is not a tool. Money is a mood. Money is whether or not tonight is safe. You didn't know you were learning that. You thought you were just growing up. Back in the therapy room, Dr. Reyes is writing something. You watch her pen move. There's a calm here that feels almost accusatory. She looks up. Tell me about the last thing you bought that you immediately regretted. It comes fast. Too fast. 6 weeks ago, a jacket, $3,400. Not because you couldn't afford it. Technically you could. But you bought it at 10:30 on a Tuesday night, alone, after a bad performance review, with a glass of wine in your hand. You wore it once. Now it hangs in your closet, and sometimes you look at it and feel a shame you can't quite locate. She doesn't flinch at the number. What happened right before you bought it? Your boss had said you weren't ready for the promotion, that you lacked executive presence. She writes again, then looks up. So you purchased executive presence? The room goes very quiet. Here's what nobody tells you about money. The transaction is almost never about the thing. The jacket isn't a jacket. The jacket is a response, a rebuttal, a $3,000 argument you're having with a feeling you don't have language for yet. And here's what makes it insidious. You're not irrational. You are painfully, brilliantly rational. You can justify every purchase with a logic so airtight it could survive an audit. But logic is not the engine. Logic is the story you tell after the engine has already fired. The engine is something else entirely. 3 sessions in, you're starting to see a pattern. And it unsettles you the way patterns do when they've been there all along, hiding in plain sight. Dr. Reyes draws 3 columns on a notepad, labels them, overspend, underspend, freeze. She slides it across to you and says, most people live in one of these. You rotate through all 3. She's right. You rotate. There are months where you spend like someone who doesn't believe the money will still be there tomorrow. Clothes, dinners, first-class upgrades on 3-hour flights. Not because you're careless, but because some primal, wordless part of you is convinced the window is closing. That abundance in your experience has always been temporary, so you metabolize it before it disappears. Then come the freeze months. $40,000 sitting in a checking account earning nothing. You cannot move it. Every option feels like a trap. Every investment feels like a door that locks behind you. So you do nothing, and doing nothing feels like safety, except it is just a slower kind of loss. And then the compulsive saving phases, tracking every dollar, eating at home for 30 days straight, canceling every subscription. You feel virtuous, then imprisoned. Then one day you spend $3,000 on a jacket, round and round and round. Dr. Reyes taps the notepad. Notice anything about these 3 states. You study them, and then you see it. They are all responses to the same thing. Fear. Session 5, the hardest one. She asks you about the first time you remember feeling financially unsafe, and you tell her it wasn't dramatic. No bankruptcy, no repossession, no scene you could point to. It was quieter than that. It was watching your mother count coupons with a focus too intense to be practical. It was your father buying himself something small, a new watch, a bottle of good whiskey, right after money got tight. The way someone eats ravenously after a long hunger. It was learning by pure osmosis that money is either emergency or escape, that there is no comfortable middle. You grew up without a concept of money as neutral, as just a tool that does what you tell it. You grew up with money as weather, unpredictable, incoming, something you survive rather than direct. So your entire adult financial life has been you surviving something that isn't happening anymore. Let that land. The revelation doesn't arrive as a lesson. It arrives the way real realizations do, sideways, quiet, while you're talking about something else entirely. You're describing why you can't invest consistently, how you start then stop, how you watch the market move and feel physical anxiety that seems wildly disproportionate. And she asks, what does it feel like when your portfolio drops 5%? You say, like I did something wrong. She goes very still. You didn't say it feels like a loss. You said it feels like you did something wrong. Silence. What does that remind you of? And there it is. In that room with those expensive throw pillows and the sound of traffic 4 floors below. You feel it land. The way your body absorbed financial instability as a child was not as a fact about the world. It was as a verdict about you. You learned somewhere deep and early that when money goes wrong, someone is to blame, and that someone was always within arm's reach. So every financial loss, every market dip, every dollar that doesn't perform, you don't experience as neutral noise. You experience it as evidence. Evidence of your inadequacy. Confirmation that the verdict was correct all along. No wonder you don't invest. Investing means exposure. Exposure means the verdict might be confirmed. 6 sessions, you open a brokerage account, not because you've resolved everything, not because the fear is gone, but because you finally understand what the fear actually is. And named things are smaller than unnamed things. You set up an automatic investment, not large, but real. You watch the first contribution clear and you wait for it. The tight chest, the second guessing, the urge to pull it all back. It comes. Of course it comes. But this time you can see it for what it is. A 9-year-old's response to an adult situation. You let it pass. What nobody tells you about financial dysfunction is that it is not stupidity, not laziness, not a discipline problem that more spreadsheets will fix. It is an emotional system built in a specific context by a specific child trying to stay safe in a world that felt unstable. And that system is now running silently in the background of every financial decision you will ever make, invisible, automatic, ruthlessly loyal to a past that no longer exists. The jacket wasn't about the jacket. The frozen checking account wasn't about the market. The obsessive saving wasn't about security. They were symptoms, fluent, sophisticated, financially dressed symptoms of something that happened a long time ago in a house that no longer stands. And the most expensive thing you will ever own is an emotional wound you've never looked at directly. You still have the jacket, you wear it sometimes. But now when you put it on, you know what it is. Not a mistake, not a trophy, a breadcrumb you left yourself, pointing back to the moment you realize that the most important financial education you will ever receive has nothing to do with money at all. It has to do with what money means to you when you learned it, and whether you are willing to look at that, really look at it, long enough to build something different. The account is open, the contribution is scheduled, the work has just begun. But for the first time in your adult life, you are not fighting your finances. You are finally understanding them.